Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I am joined by Jason Browne. Jason, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, I don't have a cool name like Zander, but my name is Jason Browne, and I am a person that does a little bit of everything. I'm fairly well. The only thing that I'm like an expert in is the thing that I don't do much anymore, which is making music. But I am one who just had a TEDx talk this year on the possibilities of privilege. Go and look it up on YouTube. I think it's one of the premier speeches that I've given. I give speeches around the world. I give talks around the world. I've done radio for 7-8 years. I've done IT. I work with organizations and corporations. I work with social media, but listen, just tell me what the topic is. I've probably done something in that space. I even one time was the navigator in a race car. So no, listen, okay, listen, I've done a lot. Just let me know what you want. I'll provide it to you, Zan.
There you go. All right, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can say that, right off, you do have that silky radio voice. So
Well, thank you. That's all because of my father's genes. That's this voice box I practiced, but that comes from, things that parents do.
absolutely. So you mentioned that you used to do music, not so much these days.
Yeah.
What did you do with music, and why, kind of what was it that made it so epic for you?
There is no feeling that I've still experienced that is similar to being on stage with a band that you really groove with, playing a song that you have written, and having the crowd be with you the entire time. That is music is one of the things that connects with me, and I think connects with most humans. In fact, I think music is often is a missed opportunity when presentations are given, when conferences are had. They shortchange what music can, how important that element can be to the whole package.
Absolutely.
But for me, music is a very integral part of who I am. I listen to music all the time. It's one of the only things that triggers that can get me emotional. So if I could be in front of her something very like serious and I'll be fine. But if you play the right music along with it, and sometimes I do it intentionally, it triggers that emotion for me. So from an emotional level, it's there. Also from a family level, the band that I had back in the day they were my family. Most of them still are my family. Not literally my family, but they not by blood.
I get it.
Yeah.
We have many families, Jason. I'm a firm believer
Yes.
that they're the families that you're born with, the families you make, and
Absolutely. And so to summarize this music thing is like it just feels amazing to be able to share that type of creativity in such a connective way. Visual art doesn't do it in the same way. Other arts to me don't completely captivate it. Dancing is close, but there's nothing like being able to create music that people enjoy with the people that you love.
absolutely. And yes, I agree that music is incredibly evocative of
Yeah.
many things. Happiness, sadness, joy, all of those things. There are certainly songs that when they come on the radio, um, it takes me right to a certain place and a certain experience that I was having, or
Hmm.
a memory, or whatever. So I do agree. There's absolutely times where I put on a particular song because I want I want to hear this song. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think whatever your creativity is, it obviously resonates in you, and it's something that brings you great joy to create. So I think
Absolutely.
that's awesome. I have to say I've not yet written a song, but you know,
Xander, listen, we will work together and make you a theme song for this podcast built by. I will help you do. If you want to do that, you let me know. We will make this song.
yeah. Well,
We will make
again,
that song.
I mean, we'll see. I've got, yeah. I mean, I think we all need a theme song that's on our cell phone. That we're like, oh
Yeah,
wait,
for
hold on,
sure.
I'm coming into a room. Let me put on the Xander song. There you go.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. So you did a TED talk, which is cool. I'm working on my TED talk. And that's, you know, trying to get it picked up. It's a very interesting process. But for you,
Yeah.
what was it like getting to do your TED talk?
So the big thing for me was like ever since I started the process of wanting to speak on stage and getting comfortable and knowing that's something that I would love to do. Being on the TEDx stage, being on the TED stage is something that you just gotta do. If you're a public
I
speaker,
feel you.
you just gotta do it, right? And it's a kind of like a rite of passage. And the thing to me though is I hadn't come up with the topic that really clicked for me,
Sure.
that justified me going after it. It's the same idea for writing a book. It's the same idea for many things in life. For me, there has to be to do it is fine, but I want to be able to do it with something that I'm like, oh no, that's I stand behind that, or that's unique, or I've not thought about it in this way, or
Yeah.
something similar. And one time I was writing a talk for a conference, and it was all about it was a diversity conference or diversity talk. I can't recall at this point. And I was like, oh, I'm tired of explaining this in the same old ways. Let me figure out some new way of approaching this. And I was like, I don't want to even talk about diversity. I want to talk about, I don't know, let's talk about privilege. What's the topic that nobody wants to talk about? I was like, privilege. All right, cool. Let's talk. Let's talk about that. And let's figure out some like unique, weird angle with that's different. And so it wasn't until that I did that a couple times in front of a few folks, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty unique. I'm having different kinds of conversations as a result of it. I was like, I think I found the key to the TEDx talk, because TED is based upon an idea worth sharing. And while it is needed for folks to have a great presence on stage and the ability to speak, which I apparently can't do, the ability to speak, the concept itself is more important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, going
Yeah,
through this process for a TEDx talk is, yeah, like it's yes, I can talk on like you. I could talk on many different things, and they would be interesting. And I love being
sure.
on stage too. But the idea is what is that unique idea, and something that you
Hmm.
said, which I know I've experienced a few times in my life, which is you try really hard to think of whatever that idea and it doesn't work. It's you kind of come into it from the side or from somehow from behind, but not head on, right? Like my first
Yeah.
book came because a friend of mine, I was having coffee with a friend of mine and she made an offhanded comment. My first book
Yes.
was about losing your sibling, something that I've done and she had done.
Mm.
And she literally, I mean, I met her. I'm like, oh, how are you? And she goes, I'm good. You know, she goes, I was just at Borders. For those younger listeners, that's a store where they actually had books. You could go in and touch them with your hand and look at them. Anyway, uh, but she goes, there were lots of books on loss of a parent, loss of a child, but none on loss of a sibling. And I'm walking away and I'm like, well, I know that. I could write a book on that. And
Mm.
up to that point, I thought, oh well, I should probably write a book because as a speaker, if you have a book, all of a sudden you're a better speaker. It's
Yeah,
funny.
it's how it works. Apparently
It's a
that's
funny axiom. Somehow I'm a better
yeah.
speaker because I have a book. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure how my writing a book makes me, you know, my oratory skills better, but it does. It's just the way. It's one of those things. The way
It's
the
just a
world works.
fact. It's like, does gravity exist on Earth? Yes. If you have a book, you're a better speaker. That's just the truth. It's just how it is, everybody.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
but that whole thing came because I was like, oh, hey, I know that. And so I tried to think
Mm.
about what I might write a book on because I was a professional speaker and I thought, oh, I need to have a book, but I had no idea what the heck I was going to write a book on. So I
Right.
think very much in our epic dreams, our epic journeys often happen not from direct, like sort of front on direct,
Hmm.
intention, but because you just said, hey, I'd like to do this, and then you go, well, how can I do that? So
Hmm.
I can, that resonates with me a lot. I know in all the speeches, the things that come pouring out of my mouth, I'm always surprised at what the audience grips on, right? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
having done lots of speeches in my life, there's the things I think are going to be the thing that the audience is really going to grab onto, and that's going. And oftentimes it's not that; it's some other thing that's the lead up to what you think is your aha moment.
Hmm.
So
No,
go ahead.
I agree with that. So like you said earlier on that you have to look at it from the side and not directly on. It's like it's when you have a really interesting concept, you have to do it like that old magic eye pictures. You have to like blur your, you know what I'm talking about? The ones with
Oh
like the
yeah,
3D image
yeah,
and so you have to kind of like blur your eyes a little bit and kind of defocus to then see like the cool piece of it. Then you're like, oh, I see it. And that's where I think the magic happens. It's kind
absolutely,
of hard. It's hard to do because it's you want to focus, you want to hyper focus, but then that's the that's the beauty of giving. I gave myself some time to really figure it out, and that was a beauty that I found, and that was my I
absolutely,
gave
and
myself
and,
the
and I
ability to do
do.
that.
I agree. I think sometimes you have an inkling of the idea, but it hasn't fully formed, so you don't know.
Yeah.
And as you were out talking about that, you figured out what the audience was, what was resonating with the audience, what part of that
Mm,
idea was resonating. I found that my Epic Begins with One Step Forward book, the things that seemed to resonate with people were not the things I thought might resonate, right? But I've
mm,
got enough experience now to say, I'm going to put it all out there, and I will let other people, I'll let the audience tell me what are the concepts that they find interesting. And then I can,
yeah.
obviously go in. The same way with music. You create music and you figure, your audience will tell you, oh, we really like that song. And
Mm,
maybe you thought, hey, I wrote 3 songs, and I really think people are gonna like this one. It's not that they dislike it, but they really like this other one more. And you're like,
right.
hey,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's happened a few times. Some of my best buds. I still think of this one song I made. I just made it in like, I don't know, 10 minutes. I was like, oh,
yeah.
this song's dumb. He's like, Jason, that's the best song you've ever made. And I was like, what? Until this day, he will still say that's the best song that I ever made. I'm like, okay. And
Well,
other people seem to agree.
Jason, there are a lot of songs that we know, and we're like, oh, that's a great song. And the artist says that they did it in 10 minutes, they did it in 2 minutes,
Yeah.
they did it like they
Yeah.
didn't take weeks to try. And they're like, yeah, I
Mhm.
just, I just had this idea, or this some little niggle came in my head, and I thought, oh, hey, that's kind of cool, and let me run with it.
I mean, I think I have not. I have to be honest. I have not read your book, but would
That's
have to
okay.
imagine that is a component of what your this first step forward is like. Tell me I'm wrong, but like if you overthink the first step, then you're never going to take it, right? I would imagine
Well,
that
yeah,
that keeps.
there's that. I think for me, the concept of epic is we all have big things that we want to do, and we talk
Mm,
about it. Oh, someday I want to write a book. I want to run a marathon. I want to write a song. I want to do a
right.
TEDx talk. I want to do whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we start overthinking all of it. Oh my gosh, oh, I have to do
Mm,
this, and I have to do this, and I have to.
yep.
And for me, the epic things that I've achieved in my life literally began with one step forward, where I just said, all right, I don't have the whole plan, but I'm gonna still take that step forward. And you find that that first step isn't nearly as difficult as you imagined it was,
Hmm.
and you kind of go, oh, okay. I mean, sometimes it is. Like
Yeah,
if you decide to run a
for sure.
marathon and you haven't been running, and you go out and run your first, quarter mile, I'm not saying that you're like, oh, well, hey, that was easy. I'm ready to go 26.2. But you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I got that done. Now I need to step it up. But
Right.
all in all, walking out the door with running shoes on and moving your body forward isn't all that difficult, and in our lives, I think sometimes we all dream about these things. Some of
Mhm.
us do it, but not because we do it just because we're like, okay, I'm gonna try.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of the, I can identify with that really, really closely. Many of the things that I was just talking, I just actually the call right before this, I was talking to my counselor, and I was expressing to her like 2024 has been one of the most interesting years of my life. And largely it has come down to these first steps, these moments of like somebody has an idea. I'm like, cool. Jason, you want to do it? I'm like, sure, why not? And then it unfolds and transforms into these things that I've never expected. But it takes like this level of vulnerability and this level of trust in yourself and this level of like, okay, this might end terribly, of accepting the fear that comes with that entire process and being like, okay, like it's not easy. And but I do have to say like that was a foundational point, an aspect of 2024, and it was one of the most amazing years of my life. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
co-sign that.
And I do think we get caught up. I talk to so many people about their epic dreams and stuff. And honestly, the number one thing is, well, the two top things. I don't know all the steps I have to take.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't either, but I'm still, still moving forward, and I don't want to fail. Well, here's something that's really true, Jason. The only thing that you're guaranteed to fail 100% are the things that you don't try, right? If you never try,
Mhm.
you're absolutely 100% going to fail at it. Fact of the
Yeah.
matter is, we all fail at stuff on a daily basis. There's things that oh, I've got to make this phone call and you didn't make it. So, oh, Jason, you failed to call the bank to tell them you moved or whatever, right? And yet
Yeah.
you're not beating yourself up because you didn't do it.
I mean, but this to me that there's two things that allow someone to be able to not get sucked into the failure of something, whatever that means, because that can mean a
Yeah,
whole lot of different things. But let's just
sure.
assume that failure means whatever the worst thing is that's in your brain, right? The if there's two ways that in the two main ways that I at least can see a way out of that. One, you have a support system. So
Sure.
like if I know that if no matter what happens, if I were to take the wrong step, I have a support system, that I have friends that if I ever needed to be like, yo, I need your help,
Hmm.
they're gonna be like, I got you. Let's do this. And it goes both ways. So like I feel like I have a support system, and not everybody has that. Not everybody has that support system that that they can trust in order
Yeah,
to help pick them back up. So that I respect. And so if I don't if there's anything that I could leave, I guess a note on this point for folks who are listening is like, if you could find a way to be in a healthy way that resource for somebody so that they can fail more, I would highly encourage that for you to find
absolutely.
somebody to do that. Um,
Absolutely. And look, failure is part of the journey. We're going to, no matter what we do,
yeah,
be it writing music, writing a book, running a marathon, along the
yeah,
way, you're not going to be 100% at it.
yeah.
And in my book, I talk about the baseball analogy, right? Which is to say, people make it into the Hall of Fame because they have a lifetime batting average of over
Mm,
300, which is great. I'm not
right.
taking anything. I'm not a baseball player. I realize how very challenging and awesome that is. But imagine in your own daily life, Jason, let's say there's 9 hours of work life type stuff that you're doing. And for
Sure.
you to have a Hall of Fame day, you only get to get 3 hours right. That means 6 hours could be complete and utter strikeout, fly out failure. And yet
It's
you get
true.
to, at the end of the day, go, that was a Hall of Fame day. Look at me.
And that's the reason why I think support systems are so valuable, because the world tells you that you're supposed to be striking 100%. And it's not true. And when your friends, and that's why I appreciate my friends. My friends will keep me in check. They'll be like, Jason, you're batting a point, you're batting 50% right now. That's
Yeah.
pretty dang good. It's pretty
Yeah.
dang good. Why don't you stop complaining, have this cheeseburger, and like let's call it a day. Like that's the reason why friends are so important, especially when you're trying to fail. They keep you in check, they let you know of your successes, they remind you of your successes. So
They
yeah, man.
do. They do.
Yeah.
And that goes, people who listen all the time, like, oh my gosh, here it comes again. But I'm going to say it's, it's in my book, it's what I call the 97-3 rule, which is I believe that 97% of your day is really good and up to 3% isn't so good. And obviously we have days where that 3% is bigger. It was a really bad day, but in
Mhm.
general, it's really good. And yet
Mm.
we seem to focus on that 3% that didn't go right and completely ignore the 97. I came up with this because when I was doing my licensing internship, I was working in a doing school-based counseling with middle school and high schoolers, and
Right.
a lot of my clients had academic issues. So I asked them what their least favorite subject was. A lot of them said math. I'm like, okay, I get that. Math wasn't my favorite either. And I
I
asked him, I
love
go,
math.
you got a 97 on your next test. How would you feel? Oh my God, I'd be so excited. My parents would be so proud. I'd tell all my friends, I'm like,
Hmm.
would you be complaining about the 3 points you didn't get? Are you kidding? I got a 97. I'm like, yeah. So why in your own life are you just focusing on just the stuff that didn't go right? And there's all this stuff that did go right. Like Jason, you and I woke up this morning. I'm not trying to be modeling, but that's a good start, right?
No, I mean this really ties to like the possibilities of privilege, right? Like, and go and watch the TEDx talk, Jason Browne, possibilities of privilege. I would love to have your comment and on this topic, but it ties back to this. If you, granted, you were like, we woke up this morning, which a lot of people might say, and it's like, okay, I've heard that before, but there is a truth to the. Let me add a layer to this.
Sure.
You woke up this morning in a house. You woke up this morning with your partner. You woke up this morning with your kids in your house. You woke up this morning with heat. You woke up this morning with water coming out of a faucet. You woke up this morning with warm water. You woke up this morning with coffee readily available. You woke up this morning and then you went to Starbucks. Any of those things are aspects of our lives that it is part of the 97% of the greatness, but sometimes we fail to recognize that these things are indeed not only benefits and pluses and blessings that we do have, but they're areas of our lives that we can use to better other people's lives as well, and our own lives even further. And so that's so while that might be like, oh, I woke up this morning, there is so much depth to just acknowledging the things that seem to be invisible on a day-to-day basis. Find one thing that you didn't appreciate today or find one thing you didn't appreciate yesterday that you can appreciate today. And that is part of that equation of learning how to appreciate what you have, which is all the
Absolutely.
possibilities of privilege. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, before we run out of time, I'd love to ask my guests this question. I think that one of the most important parts of our epic journey are two words: not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Because not yet is so powerful. If you're writing a book, oh, has your book come out? Not yet. Not no. No is such a harsh stop that
Yeah.
makes it
I
sound
get
like
that.
it's never going to happen. When I was
Yeah.
training for my marathons, oh, have you run your marathon? Not yet. Why? Because it doesn't happen for 2 more months, right?
Right. But it's
And
still going to happen.
it's still going to happen. There are so many things that are not yet, right? If
Okay.
someone's a freshman in college, you don't say, "Oh, do you have your degree yet?" Why? Because we understand, no, not yet, because
Hmm.
they got to go. They got to go through at least, I'll say, 3 years if they're trying to accelerate it. But you got a time
Yep.
period that it takes you time, right? Oh,
Absolutely.
Jason,
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
done that song? Not yet. Doesn't mean you're not. You're just not. It's just not. So my question for you, Jason, is what are one
Hmm.
or two of your not yets? And it could be professional, personal, whatever.
I'm gonna challenge you, and then I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Okay. So I will say that as a musician, one of the hardest things to do is to finish a song.
Okay.
The words "not yet" can also be a way of preventing the finalizing of something, as opposed to it being like, I haven't accomplished it yet. Like, I know that I've worked on songs that had 100 tracks, and I worked on it for three. There was a song that I made back in 2010, and I just released it this year. And so there is a point in which "not yet" needs to just be like, just do it and
Yeah, I
just
get,
finish it,
I
right?
agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to make that
Yeah.
the comment before I
You
answered the
could
question.
use it as an excuse, but I guess
Yes.
I'm talking about those things that we
Well,
say in our life, oh, I'd really love to do it. And it's not yet. You're leaving open the possibility that you could still do it. And there may be things that you think, I really always wanted to, I love flying. I'd love to get my pilot's license. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but it's certainly on my not yet list, right?
I think, I think, I think I think the reason why when it comes to music, and me not saying that yet, not finishing a song, is more about perfection. I love to have it perfect, and I don't need to have it perfect. That being said, the thing that I want to say not yet about in life is that I've spoken on stages around the world. I've had people tell me that I've changed their lives. I had people tell me that I've changed like the path that their nonprofit or their organization was going in because of something that I said, just like you said, of being on stage and somebody says something. I've had those moments, yet I still don't feel as though I feel as though that I've made an impact in a way that is significant enough. So the
Okay.
thing that is not yet for me is, um, I think I have more to give to the benefit of more people in a more significant way. So I have not yet been able to accomplish that.
Okay. And that's wonderfully profound, Jason. I like that a lot because that resonates with me. Yes, I can touch lots of lives, but I too would like to have, I'd like to help more people. I'd like to, I'd like, and I don't know if it's because giving a speech is it's a fabulous thing. It's a good day when I get to be on stage, let me tell you.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
how do we know? Like you talk about, I've had an impact. Is that just you somehow have a feeling? There's like somehow you, because again, it's hard to, how do we measure? How do I measure that I've had the impact? Is it that 10,000 people came to listen to me? Maybe, but I don't know.
So the one instance that I can give, and this just happened to me recently, was um I gave a talk about M&Ms and
Okay.
how it made membership memorable. And that talk I gave back in 2020, and it was the first time I ever gave it. This year I had somebody tell me that they heard that talk. They then shaped their entire year as a leader of their organization around that concept. Then it was so much so that others bought them. There was at least one person that made this leader custom made earrings out of M&Ms because that it also impacted them as a result and made them understand just how important the message of making membership memorable was.
Right.
So I am not one to say that I said something good, I got no negative feedback, and therefore I've made an impact. I wait until there is a moment in which I have some tangible, and she showed me the earrings. It wasn't just a like side thing. It was like, no, these were a gift to me and these are not cheap. And it was like these are the type of, it has to be something that with evidence based. It has to be something that not just on a survey. It has to be the look in someone's eyes when they're telling you about the connection that was made. You have to see how an organization is shifted from day one of the year to the day 365th of the year. It has to be like something that is palpable and touchable and like audible, even if it's musical. It doesn't matter. There has to be something real, and at that point I can say there has been impact, and I'm
Absolutely.
very critical about that, very
Absolutely.
critical
But
about
yeah,
that.
the tangible is obviously really important. I guess I should have said, what's that tangible point or moment that,
Yeah.
allows you to say, yes, I've done that. And as is the case with any of these wonderful epic goals, we achieve it, it feels great, but then you're like, now what, right? I mean, I was so excited the time, when I finished my first marathon, but honestly, about 15 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I set my goal. I did it. I'm happy. I'm not discounting it, but now what? I've done all this. Now I'm able to do this. So I signed up for another marathon. But that's what a lot of people do. Like you're like, oh, I really want to write a song, and you publish a song, and maybe you hear it on the radio. Do you stop, or are you like, oh, that was really cool, I'd like to do more? Right? You got up on one stage where you're like, oh, hey, that's great. You're like, no, I like that. I'd like to do that again. Now what? Now where? Right?
So, okay, I know we're getting close on time, but real quick, how much have you talked about Ikigai? You know, have you talked
Ikigai?
about Ikigai? Yeah.
Is that the your counter a counterpart to
No, it's not a
the
town. No, it's not a town. It is a Japanese philosophy that I tell everybody that I can. It's a
okay.
very popular. I was just talking about it 45 minutes ago.
All right.
And I got to just tell you, so the reason why this is important is it ties to this idea of like how the things that you do and what value it brings.
Sure.
So Ikigai is the cross section of 4 questions. It is what you love to do,
Yeah.
what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
Yep.
And if you can find a place that is exactly in the middle of those things,
Yeah.
then you're going to continue. The most likely you have the most fulfillment that you can. Now, each of those
Absolutely.
buckets are different levels, but like for instance, you completing a marathon and giving speeches and like all these things come together and finding the sweet spot of what evolves in that space. I think in the context of those 4 questions to me, and this is not a concept I came up with. This is way too smart for me, but
Absolutely.
I love it. And it's like, that's where I point to when I'm like, what's the next thing? It's
Yeah.
what fits those 4 questions.
Absolutely. And that's great. And thank you for sharing that. I'm
Yeah,
going to
absolutely.
glom onto that because I totally get like, where's that sweet spot where it's just, it's not so much work as it is joy. You're like, and everyone else sees it, right? They see it emanating from you that you're in your sweet spot, and people are like, wow, that's awesome. Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Jason, thank you. This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. Dare I
Thank
say,
you,
an
man.
epic conversation.
Oh, there it is.
There we
There it
go.
is. There's the
Um,
name.
how can people get a hold of you? How can they find you?
First, I want to say this episode has been Zanderful. First of
Yeah.
all, and then second of all, you can just only thing is just go watch the TEDx talk. I don't.
Right.
You can follow me in all the wonderful places too, but like just I would love to just see one comment from you on the TEDx. Just be like, that was cool, that was dumb. Here's why I disagree with you. Here's some cool other points. Whatever it is, you can tell me what you have for breakfast. Just leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Find me there. Then if you're curious, find me else other places too.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Jason. And I want to
Absolutely.
remind everyone that if you're interested in beginning your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And I want to let everyone know that coming early in 2025, there's going to be an Epic Begins with One Step Forward TV show starting. Really excited about that. And as always, I want to remind everyone that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.